Hello, my favorite pottery people. I'm Sarah. We're in the studio, so you know what that means. We're gonna get dirty. So this video, this is what we're gonna make today. So this is my garden GNOME Home Luminary. And I'm gonna show you exactly how you too can create something that's fun and whimsical for your garden. And if that is of interest to you, you're going to want to stay tuned to this video. I just love that, like I said, I've created this, but it started with just a design that I created using Procreate. Just a rough sketch, what was in my mind, and now I'm seeing it played out in real life. Skillshare is kindly sponsoring this video. So I've got my Apple Pencil, and now I need to learn how to use Procreate, and I knew exactly what I needed to do, which was head over to Skillshare and find me some classes to help me with this technology. I joined Kickstart Your Creativity with Procreate, led by Lisa Bardot. Honestly, her class is amazing. Skillshare is the largest online learning community with thousands of classes amongst countless categories, ranging from film, photography, social media, entrepreneurship, design, illustration, music, and so much more. There are classes for every level. So whether you're beginner or advanced, there's going to be something for you. As I mentioned, I've joined Lisa Bardot's Kickstart Your Creativity with Procreate. Her class consists of 20 mini projects to help me master this amazing app so that I can draw whenever and wherever the mood strikes. My garden GNOME Luminary started right here in Procreate. Honestly, I tell you, I was able to design, roughly sketch, and begin to add some color just to get a vibe. I know I'm still so much a beginner when it comes to the Procreate app, but I see how beneficial a tool it is for me. Spring is a season of fresh starts, so why not refresh your creative routine and join a Skillshare class? The first 500 people to use the link in my description box below will receive a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. What are you waiting for? Click the link. Get started today. Thanks, Skillshare. So I am going to begin by preparing all of the elements that I need in order to just be able to create and have fun. So I'm going to need a few slabs of clay. If you don't have a slab roller, you can easily roll out your clay with a rolling pin and dowels, but you're going to be looking for a slab of the size of about 16 by 22 and a 1/4 inch thick. I have a slab roller. It's a little mini tabletop version, so I need to thin out my clay a little bit, and I need to make slightly smaller slabs, so I will be making 2 different slabs. You're still going to need to roll out a few more slabs of clay, but I'm not giving the exact size because it really is dependent on how many flowers and leaves you wish to actually embellish on your little garden gnome home. I'm roll out a couple of these slabs. I save all the remnant pieces, and just because I will make a ton of little cutouts. I'd rather have a more clay rolled out than not enough, because I don't want to have to go back and do that again. So that's what I suggest, is rolling out your slab 1/8 of an inch thick, or a couple of slabs 1/8 of an inch thick, to make sure you have more than enough clay in order to adorn your little garden gnome home. Be sure to wrap up your clay. You've so carefully rolled out all of these segments and slabs, so be sure to keep all the air out to make sure that it's still pliable when you go to use it. Now, there are times where you might want to speed up and have things dry out if your clay is really wet, but just be cognizant of that. So always have lots of plastic handy. As I try to be really inclusive to all stages of the pottery journey, so I know there's people who are brand spanking new, have just signed up for a class and are raring to go, and then there are people who are, production potters. So I like to explain everything. So for those of you who are a little more experienced and wish to fast forward, go for it. Move on down. I will add some timestamps to help you navigate that, but in the meantime, I'm going to explain everything. As you can see, this clay is very soft. It's really quite moist. So you really want to be careful when you're lifting it. It tears incredibly easily when it's this moist. Now I have ribbed, and that's what I'm using, is a red rib. This is a mud tool rib, just to actually smooth out, remove any texture in the clay that came from my canvas that when I rolled it out. You're also compressing the clay here and making it really nice and strong. So, but as you can see, I'm using the rib in various directions in order to really make sure that that clay is ready to be used. You may be wondering what all these little dark blotches are in the clay. It's just some mold, and mold is a very normal thing in the pottery studio world. It just happens. You got moisture, you got organic compound, and you're going to get some mold. So don't worry if it happens. It actually works in the benefit of the clay, so not to worry about that. I had this clay for a while in my studio and then actually had to like soften it again so I could reuse it, and that's why it's incredibly soft right now. Anywho, I have laid down my first template. This is the template for the actual gnome hat, and I created it. It's 15 on the bottom, 15 going high, and then at the very top it's a 4-inch wide actual space, so that it allows for me to sort of coil the clay around. All of these little bits of clay, save them. You may use them later. So I will be wrapping them in plastic as well so that they're already rolled out, so all of those little bits, don't crumple it up just yet. So what we do to one slab of clay, we always do to the other. So be sure to rib both pieces of clay, both sides of the clay. The ribbing is compressing the clay, making it stronger, removing texture, etc. So don't rush that step. Make sure you do it. So this is the second template that I created. I actually used a what is it? I guess a quart of paint. So one of the smaller cans of paint, and I measured it and created this template because I'm going to use that paint can later. So basically, it is a piece of clay that is going to be 13.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches high. And now I'm going to lay all of those pieces, because remember I said how wet this clay was. I'm using here HardieBacker board. I've mentioned it before. If you don't have it in your studio, it's a must-have. HardieBacker board is a cement type board. It's used basically behind shower tiles just to help with the waterproofing, etc. But it is amazing for removing moisture from clay. It's great for drying pieces nice and flat. This is so moist, I need it to firm up before I can actually begin building my little gnome home. So while the clay is firming up, I am going to begin cutting out all of my little flowers and embellishments, leaves. So I have these handy dandy they're fondant cutters actually. So they're usually in the cooking section. I did get these on Amazon. I'll list them below, but I have a variety of different flowers, different sizes, and I am just going to cut them all out. I am sprinkling a little bit of cornstarch down onto the actual slab of clay. It makes it easier for the release, but I love these little these little fondant cutters because they actually have a plunger to help actually release the flower itself. As you can see, I'm putting all of my little cutouts onto a bat, which I will later wrap in plastic just to keep them moist and ready to be applied. Be sure to make more flowers than you think you actually need. I didn't notice that my main camera wasn't filming, so I am doing a quick review. I'm using an extruder. I have just a handheld extruder, which is a really useful tool in the studio. If you have access to a wall mount extruder, get familiar with it. They are amazing to work with. So I'm using a bit of scrap clay. Normally I would wedge it all up and put it in nice and smooth so that for handles I'm not going to have air bubbles. But for this project it really doesn't matter. So I'm just putting some clay in the barrel of the extruder. I'm selecting my die. I have used two different round dies, a very small diameter one and a little bit of a larger diameter, just so I have a variety of coils that I can use throughout my project. You push it and then the clay begins to come out. So, the softer the clay, the easier it is. If you've got very hard clay, yeah, that can be problematic. Requires very strong hands, but these will dry out really fast, so you're going to want to cover it in plastic until we get to the actual assembling. Okay, so we've got the clay. I'm going to cut my bevel. Cut my bevel. You cut the bevel the same angle, so it's like this and like this, same angle, because when they join up, they will then butt against nicely. My serrated rib, which is really, really good for, I like it, for scoring up my clay. So since I've been teaching beginner classes and hand building and wheel, I just learned that, you know, you really have to share all the information. So for some of you, this is going to be all like basic, and you can feel free to fast forward through some of this stuff. But from a beginner standpoint, it's, you know, I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody behind. So I'm just using some of my reclaimed clay slip, which has everything in there, every kind of clay. So it should have some grog and whatnot. And I'm just going to start. I'm going to get it goopy here. Get it up. Get it on there before I wrap it around my pot. Same thing on the other side. Like so. In comes the can. So I've wrapped the paint can in some newspaper. This is going to help me release the paint can from the clay. If I didn't do that, the clay, be it that it's sticky, is going to stick to the shiny surface of the paint can. So having that little bit of newspaper, I'm able to slip the paint can out, the paper remains, and then you can pull the paper out afterwards. So it's a good practice if you're using a form to wrap it in newspaper beforehand. Use that. Give a nice, strong joint. And if you're a beginner, joints are notorious for coming apart. So you really do need to spend a fair bit of time on your joints. You want to make sure that you use enough slip and that you score it enough. You know, it will make such a difference to do that. You want it to be as seamless as possible. And to be strong, because it really sucks when seams like to split open on you and you've worked really hard on something. So yeah, this is gonna be my advice to you. All right, so that I'm gonna leave for a little while just to kind of hang tight and sort of firm up like that. But it has begun to firm up, especially the side that was sitting on the hardy backer board. So I am going to, because I want this to be able to come off, because ideally you're going to be having a candle inside, or maybe some citronella inside, or whatever. It could just be decorative, or even little fairy lights. So again, we need to cut a beveled edge all in the same angle. So it's a 45-degree angle. I'm just holding my knife steady and cutting along the edge, cutting the exact same angle for the other side, so that the two edges will actually butt up and create a 90-degree edge and really make it nice and strong. So it's giving the most surface area for the clay to be layered. If you're not scoring like this, you may have trouble with your seams, or when you're attaching handles, you need to score heavily. I find this a really nice deep score going in a variety of directions makes a world of difference, because you're trying to make the two clay bodies sort of become one. You're disturbing all those particles and fibers so that they just, I don't know, jive and become one. Now all of that slip is going to go in there and kind of fill and join, and when the two bodies get together, they just have texture to grab onto, so it's not putting two smooth surfaces together. So same thing on the other side. Okay, bring these around. Like I said, because it's firmer, it's having fun. It's a lot easier to work with if you try to, you know, do something like this when the clay is, you know, fresh out of the bag. Sometimes it's a little bit too finicky. It just, you know, it's so difficult to work with. So I'm just going to squeeze those two seams so that they're facing each other, sort of like sliding the one under the other so that they will bond. Now the way I've done this, I will have is it going to be a little longer in the back, kind of like a hat, but kind of like a house. So it's kind of between a gnome and the gnome's little fairy house. So this little guy is amazing for supporting inside while you're doing these types of things. It was actually, I saw this on Tiffany over at Hobble Creek Pottery a long time ago. She did a video and she was using these. I think it makes some sort of biscuit or something. Anyways, it works marvelously because you can get it right into the point, and it's great for you to be able to really join the two components together. I often will score even the outside of my seam just to ensure that all the little particles are really kind of roughed up and that they are joined. I often, but not always, will put a coil on the outside. I will definitely put a coil on the inside, but this is a really good practice. Then you can actually smooth it out using the rubber rib, and you will never know that you actually just really scratched up the entire surface. I'm beginning to form my roof, so I'm actually pinching the rim and trying to create a little bit of a flared edge. If you accidentally tear it at this point, don't worry, because we're going to be adding leaves and flowers that can cover and heal that over. But the object is just to start beginning to create that initial shape, like of the gable or the sort of the eaves of the roof. I'm also creating a little bit of a bend in the actual peak of the roof, just because I think it'll add a little bit of a quirkiness to my little gnome home. I'll be distorting the pot a little bit more later on, but just getting the initial shape. That's what my gnome house looks like. I'm gonna even use this stuff here. Because I'm going to apply it to the seam on the inside. Put some slip right down. See, this is where that overhead shot would have been primo, but I don't know why it wouldn't upload. Sorry. Also, it's a new mic and I'm getting used to it. I like the sound quality, but I have to figure out a few adjustments. I know there can be improvements, so sorry about all the rustling and whatnot, but I'm learning. I'll figure it out soon enough. Kind of got to feel your way in there. You can't really see, so I'm just going to try to now press it. You can feel where the seam is, and you're just trying to get it right on the seam and then sort of spreading it out. This tool, I don't even remember where it's from. It doesn't say on here. But I use the end of it here. It's like a finger, so I'm able to go in and actually, I call it buttering. So you're like sort of buttering some bread. I'm moving the clay, the actual, let's see if I can get this at an angle for you to see here, but might be able to see at the bottom here. So I'm taking the clay and so what I was thinking here but not saying is that I'm trying to spread that coil of clay evenly to either side of the seam in order to really make it really strong, so reinforcing it. You would hate for this to, you know, crack open during drying, or worse yet, in the kiln. You want to make it as smooth as you can all the way up. Now what I'm doing here is I'm using my fingers to really feel and smooth out anything, you know, that any lumps of clay or any areas that I feel is a little bit thinner, just to make sure that the clay wall is pretty even, because that's going to give it the strength that it needs to withstand such high temperatures and just the stress of drying alone. And we're going to be putting things on here too, which will also help because trust me, there's gonna be a lot of gooey, good stuff going on top of this cute little house. So let's get a little bit of water in there. If you see any cracks, just add a little bit of moisture with your brush. These are the brushes I use. Again, I got these off Amazon. They're they're little flame brushes. They're artist watercolor brushes, but I use them all the time, and they come in a set in all different sizes. I absolutely love them. But yes, artist brushes are my go-to. I know some of you use makeup brushes. You could, sure, if you wanted to, but I typically use an artist brush. All right, I'm just going to spread that out so that you don't see the seam. But we're going to come back to that shortly. And this is going to firm up quite nicely. This is going to come together so cute. Okay, I can't wait. I decided that I wanted to flare this rim out even more because I want it to overhang over the cylinder that I created. So the actual, like the first floor of the house. So I'm using wet hands and I'm pinching and pulling in the same way you would, like, you know, if you were trying to pull a handle, but I'm just pinching and pulling the clay ever so slightly just to help elongate and kind of make a little bit of a ruffly edge. I think is going to be so incredibly cute, as well as it's going to help to actually space out and make the actual cone just a little bit wider so that it fits down over top of the actual first floor, so that it doesn't like topple over in the wind, etc. But I'm just giving it a nice little flare. Okay, this is going to be so cute. Okay, all right, I'm going to let this firm up a little bit just so that they don't dry out on me. Put my paint can aside. Okay, but the newspaper is still inside, which will easily peel away. Okay, I'm going to use my 4.5-inch cookie cutter, which should work for the floor. Stamp my name on the bottom. And because I'm going to be joining the cylinder to the base, I need to really score the edge. So along the entire edge of the base, I'm using my serrated rib to really create a deep etching in the clay, both on the base as well as in the cylinder itself. As I mentioned, we need to score the rim of the pot so that the two joints will become one. I cannot reiterate this enough. I know that I've taught it, I've shown it in my classes, and yet I've seen students just doing a very, just a couple of little lines with their needle tool. It's not enough. It will fail. I promise you, it'll fail. So you might as well go deep or go home. So really score your edge. I have scored it with my scoring tool or my serrated rib, and now I'm going back and actually using a needle tool to make sure it's etched extra deep, along with the fact that this clay is a grog clay, which also has particles. It will join together. It's going to be incredibly strong. Grog clay is notorious for really being a good clay body to use when actually hand building. So you have to think about all of these things when you're actually putting your pieces together, just to make sure that they withstand the drying as well as now a kiln firing, or not to mention 2 kiln firings. Seal the joint. Hopefully that's directly above and you're getting a good bird's eye view. Go around. I know it's dark inside, so it's hard to probably see, but I'm just running my brush right around with some slip right up and in that corner, being mindful of wherever my brush is going, my hand, this part of my hand is in contact with the wall, so that, you know, it doesn't push off, or you don't want to push it in too far, but you do want it right up there, like so. One of the coils I made earlier, I find it easier if I kind of go down and do it in segments, but I'm just going to push it down into the actual corner. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know if you can see it in there. I've pushed it down. So it's all the way down there, and now I'm just going to blend them. But again, being mindful with my hand on the outside so that I can feel, so I don't push it the seam apart, the seam that I'm actually trying to join. And because this clay is so soft, I'm able to smear. So I'm doing this with my finger, and I'm taking some of that coil and I'm pushing it to the floor, and then I'll do the same thing to push it up the wall so that it fully blends and will actually fill in any gap there and make that joint extra strong. So I'm just working my way around now the top, going up the wall. So I'm just doing this, but my hand is on the outside. So my hands are communicating with one another. They're basically, I know where my hand is on the inside. I can feel my finger. They're just literally connecting together. I'm almost pushing the two together. I'm going to take a piece of clay, lay it down in the seam. I shall put a bit of slip there. So this is another scoring tool I quite like. It's got the little sharp prongs. I'm just going to score up. The side. Lay it down. Get it wet and gooey so it blends into the wall on either side of that seam. Okay, I'm just going to leave this for a little bit because I want it to sort of firm up, but my joints are really good. I'm very pleased. We're about to get, when I come back from dinner, we will be just doing all the fun artistic stuff. I'm going to give this a little spritz with some water so that they stay nice and moist. This will give my little roof, oh, this is gonna be perfect, a little time to dry out as well. So I had covered everything with plastic the night before just to make sure things didn't dry out too much, but I'm still going to be misting it with some water just to help soften it up because it's sitting on an MDF board, which is going to dry out the piece a little bit. But what's nice is it's really firmed up, and it's going to make it actually much easier to carve in all of the little details. Anywho, I'm also misting the little flowers because they actually did dry out a fair bit because they were actually on that MDF board. So, but this, again, no worries. Just give it a mist and cover it with plastic until we're ready to go. Let the fun begin. We are going to begin shaping and forming our roof line. So this is kind of where we're really going to have a lot of creativity, and you can decide how quirky you want your roof line to look. I want, because I'm going to be carving in a window into the actual roof. But I do want to bend at the top of my little roof. So just making sure you add water, whether you mist it, whether you use a wetted fingers, sponges, just don't force anything because you may actually crack it or break it. But we're going to begin kind of etching out and carving out, like creating where things are going to be. So I'm going to just sort of freestyle right now kind of where the front door is going to be. I'm just using a needle tool, and I'm just going to carve sort of a round looking door here. Like so. I think that's a good size. So I'm going to begin working it a little deeper. You can take a knife. I'm just using a kitchen paring knife. As long as you're careful, just gradually, because this is much firmer right now, because it has set up. I am going to begin cutting it out just nice and slowly. But this is a pretty sharp knife, so you want to be careful that you don't, your fingers don't slip. You can get a pretty nasty cut pretty fast. So I'm just going to begin. I don't want to break this because I'm still going to be using the door. So that's why you kind of want it to be a little bit on the firm side. I was able to cut it so it was perfectly level with the actual floor of my pot, so it will transition nicely. This will be a nice little access point as well, because I'm going to have this so that it's actually kind of propped open. That's the goal. I want it to sort of sit open. I'm carving the details into the actual door. So again, freestyle, just get an initial carving for the window. I want to make quite a few openings in the entire little gnome home for the light to actually emanate out from. So you decide how much light or windows that you want. So I'm actually just slowly etching, supporting the back of the door with my fingers so that I'm not applying too much pressure and inadvertently crack my door, which would again put me way back. So just slow and steady wins the race. They're gonna be little shutters. So you're gonna have a little shutter here, a little shutter here, which we will affix, but I'm just gonna smooth this all out. So we're just creating all kinds of fun little details to make it look extra cute. I want to make something to make it look like it's got a grained wood. I'm going to use my scoring tool just to kind of sketch some create a little bit of texture in the clay, like so. And I'm going to do some stronger ones to make it look like little boards. Starting to come together. Now we're going to score the back of our little shutters. Got a bit of scoring there already from the little, twinkle it around a little bit. And you can be as detailed or as basic as you like. This is where it's really it's your expression, your art expression. So just like to wiggle it to make sure it sticks on. And there we go. So that, we're gonna put a little doorknob and everything on there, but we'll do that shortly. Whenever you have cushions, old garden furniture or whatever, save them and you can cut them out. They're so handy in the studio for so many things, so that you're not like banging your wares on your table and maybe unnecessarily causing some issues. So I also want a window up here. So I'm going to begin drawing out my window. And I'm going to do So I'm going to speed this up a little bit so that this video is not incredibly long. There's a lot of details that go into this pot. I'm not going to film everything because it's going to be a lot of rinse and repeat, but I'm going to show you how I cut out the window with all the little, the bars intact. So it's just smaller little segments that you'll be cutting out. Do the rough sketch, and then just slow and steady while you try to actually cut through the clay. Just being very careful to support behind the actual window so that you don't inadvertently break any of the little bars in between each of the window frames. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the window. Seal those there. But you can start to see where this is going. Slip just to keep it nice and moist. Don't want this because this is going to dry out because we've so much air can circulate around this part of the pot. So I'm just going to add a bit of the slip, get all the fibers. It'll look so cute with a candle burning inside. I'm going to cut a window on the other side, not just the one side. But this is definitely going to be the front of the house. Because that's going to be the door overhang to make sure that no fairies get covered or gnomes get covered in any water if it's raining. Some of that clay from yesterday, it's been wrapped up, but I'm going to make a little chimney. So we need 4 sides. You could make a round one, but I'm going to just join these together to make a little chimney box. Two. Let's cut another one out here. 3. 4. Cut a bevel so that they join nicely. Always on the same angle so that they all come together. The chimney is basically a 4-sided box, so you need to actually cut a bevel on all edges so that you're able to join them seamlessly, and scoring the edges, adding slip just to make sure it's good and strong. What's nice is, again, this is a firmed up piece of clay, so it is much easier to work with, and that's why you save all your remnants. Just, again, lightly wrapped in plastic makes a world of difference. So I'm just literally putting the 2 pieces together. I will smooth out the seam and make sure it looks fabulous. Not going for perfection. It's a fairy house, you know, they're little and they're quirky and crooked, and that's how I see it. So just joining my corners. sure they are good and strong. So pinching the corners. Now, this is going to go on the side somehow, so it needs to be on an angle. So I'm going to cut it kind of on a 45. See if that's enough of an angle. I need a bit more. As you can see, I like to eyeball things. That's going to be cute there, I think. Yeah, I like that there. Kind of then sends homage to a little house. And we're going to score all of this. Now, I'm not going to open it up because you know what I thought of now? Why you shouldn't open up is if it's, you know, raining and you got a candle. Yeah, I'm not going to open it up. So I'm just going to have it on the side like so. So I'm going to score there. Add my slip. Like so. Smoosh it around a little bit. If we have to add a coil, we will, but that is going to be, I'm still going to add more embellishment on the round of the chimney, so not to worry, because we've got vines and we're going to have flowers and we're going to have all kinds of good stuff around this, little rocks and stones and good stuff. So a lot of that embellishment stuff is still going to be happening. This window, that will be a good size. So that is a 2.5 inch cookie cutter, and I'm just going to cut out the circle. I'm going to cut it in half. And I'm going to attach it the same way I did the other windows. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a very messy potter. I'm a messy cook. I hate messy. I mean, I will clean up in the kitchen as I go, but I'm still messy. It's just, I don't know. All right, so we're going to do the same idea, but I think I'm going to put my wooden detail in right now, just to kind of make it make your boards. We're going to score really well. Score the back really well. That's why I like these because they really score up your piece, because that's the thing, is you want it to really kind of mash up. I'm just putting some water in there right now. Just get some water to kind of get in those little fibers. Now I'm adding some slip. There's the shutter one. There we are, shutter number 1, shutter number 2. Oh, the shutters are too big. I think they're a bit too big. I'm going to cut them down just a wee bit. let's just make them a little bit more rounded this way. Again. Yeah, that's better. Much better. So now that looks a little bit more like a window with the shutters. I'm just rolling out my clay. So here's a tip for you. If you didn't know, if you're struggling with actually rolling a coil, and it's very interesting because it's amazing on how many people actually struggle with this. So in order to prevent it from going blub, 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 like where it goes oblong and oval, you actually either you push only in one direction. So you apply pressure in one direction. So either you're applying the pressure on the forward and then you're just pulling it back, or you're applying the pressure on the back and then you just push it forward. And if you do that, you'll get a round coil. Otherwise it typically goes oblong. And in order to stretch it out even more, like you can actually, with your fingers, spread them out like so. So I'm just pulling it back. So I apply my pressure on the push and then I just kind of push it back. So it's a push and then I just pull it back. But you can do it so fast that it looks like you're applying pressure on both sides, but you're not. Hopefully that was a good helpful tip for some of you. I know some of you who've been maybe hand building forever, you know, but I try to give information for all levels of potters because we do have some beginners here and I hear that and they enjoy the information, whereas maybe some of the more veteran potters would be like, who is she talking to? Doesn't she know I know this? So I am trying to teach or provide information for all levels. So you can either fast forward or disregard things that I say if it's something you already know. Then I don't have to keep spinning it around. Put this on there. Let's get this out of the way, shall we? All right, that's neater. Why didn't I do that sooner? Okay, so I've got my, these are on pretty good now. I got my chimney, which is gonna have some cute stuff. I made a one handle, it's a big handle, for a little shutter. And I'm gonna add a little bit of stuff to the back of that. Yeah, little door, little handles there. I'm using my diamond core sponge, the blue one, and it's super soft. It's really great on finishing your piece, and even nice throwing with. I've used it now to throw and love it. I bet you thought I forgot to add a coil. I did not. I just wanted everything to kind of really just firm up, and then you're really able to see where there's a space and maybe how much of a coil you actually need to use. I chose just a very thin, small coil just to fill any gaps, to make sure that the chimney and the roof line are filled in nicely and make that a really nice, strong bond. I'm going to be adding moss around the top of the chimney, so that too is going to make sure, hide any areas where it could be weakened, but always smoothing out that clay, making it a really nice tight bond. This is your chance, and this is something I see a lot of beginners, they're not always spending as much time on these details. It really makes a world of difference in how your pot is going to survive. This guy here, my Kemper JA4 tool, I use this a lot when I'm actually attaching handles. I like the way it has like the knife edge, and it's got a very small like potter's finger that you can get in and really press your clay where you want it, where your finger may not be able to go, and then you can cut away with the wooden knife. I'm just going to add a little detail here just to kind of make that very finite. Big sponge down. where right at the shutter there. It's a small detail, but it just makes it look like it's not just pasted on, that it's, you're giving it a little space. Okay, let's go back to the house. So to affix the door and make sure that it has a really strong bond, I'm going to be scoring and slipping, of course, the corners with which the actual door is going to fit in within the hole. So really getting a good bond there. I'll also be adding some little hinges to help hold the door on and, you know, look decorative, but also serve as a function. I want to make sure that if somebody comes up and decides to like try to open the door, they don't actually snap the door off. So you really want to be thinking ahead of how somebody, the end user, might actually use it or try to use it, and be sure that you know, it's good and strong. So adding the little hinges, I think, is going to be another element to actually make sure it stays put. Again, rolling out my little hinges, flattening them a little bit with my finger so that they are not little round discs or little sausages. They just actually gives it a slight detail. So this is where you get to finesse and create the level of interest that is important to you, or realism that is important to you. But just, you know, I find all of those little steps, those are the artistic expression. And you can, you know, you could make it curly, you could do anything with it. Honestly, just have fun with it. I'm going to put a small coil to the back of the door where the hinges are, just to, again, make it a little bit stronger there. So if somebody does decide to pick it up by the door or try to yank it open, it doesn't break off. Okay, so let's see where we want to apply. Actually, you know what I'm going to put on first? Some vines. I think the vines are going to dictate. Actually, you know what I want to do here? I think this window needs some detail. Going around the window, okay. So we're going to score. See how many times I can say that word today. Anywho, I've added some really fun like coils. I'm not sure at what point it cut out, but those coils just to start creating some vines, because then that's going to be the point with which I will put my flowers and leaves. I again suggest using something with a cushion, and again keeping things nice and moist. And it's all going to be slip and score, just slipping and scoring and slipping, scoring, slip, score. So now let's just see. I want to have some flowers. Let's see, these are a little groovy flower here. So if you're going to be doing this, you want to be scoring. Let's get this out of the way. I'm going to mist it, make sure it stays nice and moist. And I'm just going to score the back of this little flower. Sorry, my nose is, I have a runny nose. It's just my life. I'm allergic to dust. And well, though it's, you know, a studio and it's a basement and whatnot, it's just part of my life. So I'll do my best to not be sniffling all over the place. So I'm just going to start adding flowers just wherever I feel I want to add a little something fun. I'm going to use the end of my little rubber. These are called silicone brushes, and I quite like them. They're amazing for when I'm doing any sort of finessing. Got them on Amazon, and but I do use them a lot. So they come in a series of like 5. So just so you know, they're large, right? They're all different, but they're called a silicone brush. Anyways, I use this guy the most, and but the end is really good for creating a little extra texture there. Add a leaf, maybe. Let's put a leaf somewhere here, coming off the vine. So let's get a leaf in here. These are going to be your Bob Ross moments. And if you're too young to know who Bob Ross is, look him up. Anyways, he'd be putting a tree here, putting a mountain there, and I'm going to be putting a leaf here because that's where I want to put a leaf. And maybe I'll put a little flower beside the leaf. So it's just going to be building on top of the texture, and just having fun with it. Like, that's what this project is going to be. So I want to just fill in basically maybe here. So that's the body. Now, same thing goes here. I'm going to put a big leaf here just to kind of hide the back there, or maybe a big flower. See, you can always make things work. All right, I'm going to do that. Hide that with one of my cherry blossoms and maybe a leaf or two. Maybe I'll do 2 leaves coming off here, overlapping. See? See? Always thinking. So I'll do the 2 overlapping. Adding water just to get it softened up because it's pretty dry. And all right, we're in the final stretch, guys. I know this is a long video, and trust me, I have edited so much content out. This has taken me a really long time. Anyways, I just wish I could work this fast. Like, how amazing would that be? Anywho, I'm just showing you because I know some of you may enjoy actually my thought process of how I'm actually placing, you know, the different elements. But it's literally a labor of love. It's your expression. You add as little or as much as you desire. I'm going to use up the majority of all of my little cutouts, and I'm going to briefly show you how I make moss. That's coming up because that's another great way to add some texture and just make it look a little bit more whimsical. Just thinking of a little fairy house or a gnome, a little place would be in some forest in some damp area. That's why I think of that. So just hang tight and I will show you that in a second. Okay, now you just need a colander. And you need some soft clay, and you're just going to, this is a little on the dry side, so we'll see if we can get it to go through, but you can push it and it's going to give you that fun little texture. And I'm just going to take my knife and cut it off. I have little patches of moss that I can now attach here and there. I'm thinking moss would love to collect around here. So it's already pretty moist, but let's just do it for kicks and giggles, okay? A little bit of moss up in here. See how that just push it through your colander. Now this is my colander that I use down here in the studio. I don't use this one in my kitchen. But it does add interesting sort of texture and movement. I use this for other things too. Just, it's interesting if you like to do seascapes. It's a fun texture because it can look like coral. So you can use it for a lot of different things, this technique. Just pushing it through until you get the desired look. And I just cut off a little bit. I'm going to be putting moss down around the base because that's where moss would be in my little world. Me and my dang cat hair here. You'll see the little tufts of cat hair. That's on my apron. Coco has decided to cuddle up with me, and yeah, well, she's a bit of a beast. A long-haired beast. So I'm just going to add a little more moss here and there. Get the water up and in behind it. more up in here. Nest, and I am ready for the final little assembly, but I think this is going to be so darling. I can't wait to fire this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so lots of flowers, and what I've done. Okay, let's just see. You ready? Are you ready? Oh my goodness. I want this to kind of hang down like it would, you know, if it's like a, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Haha. Perfect. Oh, that is so cute. So cute. Let's see if I can shimmy shimmy. I want to make sure it's on good, that it wouldn't want to flop off. And so what I've also did was to add a little extra kind of oomph. So with my scoring tool and in the moss, I'm just actually just stamping my scoring tool just to add, like, almost like the moss is trailing off. So from the thicker parts to just like a little bit. We'll see if it shows up. I mean, the glaze may fill it in, but it might be interesting. So I'm just adding a little extra detail to it. I think this is so friggin' cute. I want it to taper a little bit. Let me slide that off. So I'm going to thin it a little bit more on the end. So I could actually, because there is something here, I'm just going to try to map it out a little bit. So almost like, as long as it doesn't look like a snake. Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to be really cute. Something to that effect. Because it trails underneath here. Maybe I need to put another leaf in there. Okay, so I'm going to score and get this on properly. So the way, again, I just take my needle tool and just do a thin line, kind of going around. Great little slip. Coming around. It's pretty dry, so I don't want to snap it off. You gotta be careful. That would really suck. That would really suck at this point. Actually, I kind of like the way that's kind of hanging like that. Just need to attach it right here on the back. Need a leaf or two. This is why you save all your remnant pieces, is you never know what you're going to need. So keeping them covered so I don't have to go and roll out new stuff. There's a little bit, and let's get a leaf. You can see how I'm supporting so I don't accidentally snap it off or anything, because that would not be good. Let's put that there. That means we need a flower. I think this is adorable. It's going to look so cute in my garden, and I think it's a fun project. It's a little time consuming. I don't know how profitable it would be, because you'd have to charge a lot of money if you're going to sell something like this just to make it an affordable thing in your lineup. Because yes, it took time, but it's a fun project. I hope you try it. I hope you try it out yourself. Okay, put it down, Sarah. Put it down. Chat about how I'm going to dry this together. Just take some flyers that we all get in the, well, at least we do. We get flyers in our mail. So just to prevent them from sticking, because some areas are still pretty darn moist, I'm going to line it up. And by having that newspaper kind of tucked in between the two components, it will help it to release nicely. So if you didn't know that trick, if ever you're putting a lid on something and you're worried about, you know, the pieces sticking together, just put some newspaper, just little tabs of newspaper, and it, whoopsie, did I just pull that out? I did. Let's get that back in here. Well, that's the way to do it. And then you can dry your components together, but if for whatever reason they decide to get a little stuck, you can pull them apart. I want them exactly where they're going to be setting up. So I want to make sure that my windows are aligned in the front, and yeah, the windows in the back. The window in the back matches up with all of my little leaves in the back. You see how I covered up the crack? See? Never worry. Don't worry. You can always do something with it. So not to worry. And I'm going to leave that to dry. I'm going to cover it in plastic to make sure it dries incredibly slowly, because I don't want cracking. So that's it. My little gnome home luminary, I think, is going to be darling in my backyard, with some lovely lights inside, flickering away, looking like the little gnomes are inside enjoying. But it just brings me so much joy to be putting flowers and thinking about spring and that summer is coming. So if you're with me, drop a heart in the comments below. Oh, I just can't wait. I can't wait. I know a lot of you are in warmer climates, and you know, you don't have the same anticipation as us in a more northern and cold climes. Anywho, so this is my gnome home. I hope you try it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Then you'll know exactly when I upload videos. If you're new to the channel, I do all things pottery, glazed kiln openings, glazing, hand building, throwing, you name it, I show it. So I hope you join this a growing community. If you're already joined, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. You're the reason why I put these videos out. I hope I'm able to inspire you and, you know, or just entertain, because I know I have all levels within my community, from a beginner all the way up to, you know, literally production potters. So I hope I'm able to provide you all with some value. And again, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you know when my next video comes up. So with that said, happy potting and get dirty, and until next time. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free. Come on now. Who doesn't like free? And don't forget to like it. It means the world to me. And while you're at it, don't be shy. Leave a comment. I love hearing from you. Thanks for watching.